Yes.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to call our meeting to order. We appreciate all of you in attendance. We'll get started on our agenda, which has an opening provided by Councilmember Jake Garn, after which Councilmember Chris Snell will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our Father in heaven, we bow our heads in humility before Thee, gratefulness for the wonderful community in which we live. We're grateful for the citizens and families that live in this community. We're grateful for also all the volunteers who make this city what it is, and peaceful, wonderful place to raise a family and to live and also to work. We're also very grateful for all of the city employees and the many essential services that they provide to us. And we ask that as we conduct this council meeting, that we will have Thy Spirit to be with us and that we will be guided to make wise decisions based on the best knowledge that we have. And we say these things in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Will the audience please rise? Repeat the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated.
Thank you, Councilmember Garn, Councilmember Snell, for leading us in our opening. Before we get started on tonight's agenda, we'll begin with introductions. My name is Steve Hyatt. I serve as the mayor of Kaysville City.
Jake Garn, City Council.
Dave Adams.
Susan Lee, City Council.
Chris Snell, City Council.
Larry Page, City Council.
Shane Scott, City Manager.
Maria Devereaux, City Recorder.
Andy Thompson, Engineer.
Thank you. We do have agendas available on the wall over here to your left. You're more than welcome to grab one and check off as we move through tonight's agenda items. The next item we have on our agenda is called the public. This is the time in our city council meeting when we open the agenda to any of you in attendance that would like to address the city council. We do not have any public hearings scheduled tonight regarding for any of tonight's agenda items. So if you want to address the city council regarding one of tonight's agenda items, this would be your opportunity to do so. We do ask that you keep your comments limited to 3 minutes. Our city recorder does keep track of time. I'm laughing because I was thinking about last week's sound effects, but we're back to the good old-fashioned timer. She does keep track of time, so when you hear a not-so-subtle beeping, that's an indication that your time has expired. We'd ask you to wrap up your comments. So with that, we'll open call to the public.
Well, I hope I'm not the only one tonight, Mayor, but I do have a couple things I'd like to say. First, recognize you, Mayor, and City Council, and the staff. I appreciate personally what you have done over the years for our community. My name is Reed Nelson. I live on Burton Lane, and I was here 2 weeks ago and addressed you. I've sent some emails out. I started by first sending it to the mayor to let him look and review what my thoughts were, what my comments were, and I believe he forwarded that to everyone else on the city council. And I hope that you had an opportunity to look at that, review it, because I think there are some very valid points in that email. I spent about an hour this afternoon with Andy, so put him in for some overtime, would you? But he kind of told me the whole history of how this all came about, and a lot of that I didn't know, I didn't understand at the time. And I can see how we got to where we are today with this piece of property on Burton Lane and Cage Drive. I understand it, and I see, and I have some empathy for what we did, what was done. Let me put it that way, what was done. However, I still feel very, very strong. At the end of the road, everything we say, it was done wrong. I sincerely think that there are some very legal issues that were not followed, and thereby this whole thing, in my opinion, in my view, in my research, tells me that it's illegal. I am not after anybody's head. I definitely am not. I have no grudges. I have no axe to grind. I just see that this is wrong, and I hope that we have an opportunity to look at it. And I know you're sick of it. You've had it for a long time, but I ask very sincerely that you look at it one more time, and let's look at every issue. If you can show me step by step everything that was done was legal, I'm going to sit down and shut up. I'll be through. But I don't think it was done properly, and I think we need to back up and look at it. For that reason, I request the City Council reconsider the action that was taken 2 weeks ago on the rezone of that property. Please don't take this as a threat. But I feel so sure that there's some legal issues here. I am going to pursue it further. And the last thing any of us want is any more bad publicity for the city of Kaysville. I don't want that. I just don't want it. I don't want to see it. It's my city. I sat up there for 8 years. So I feel more, I think, a part of this city than a lot of citizens, excluding you, because I was there. And for that reason, I plead with you that you'll reconsider the action that was taken last week. Now, if you have any questions for me, I would be more than happy to answer them. I'll do whatever I can to convince you, show you my perspective and where I'm standing from. Now, if you have no questions, and maybe that's not appropriate time for you to ask me questions, but what I would ask, if possible, I don't want to stay here all night. And what I understand is it takes one of the three councilmen that voted affirmative to that action 2 weeks ago. If one of those will suggest or request a reconsideration of that action, then that can be taken care of. And I don't know, Mayor. Can I?
I'll yield a moment when we finish call to the public. And
okay, very good. I appreciate that, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Reed.
My time's up already. I'm Dean Wall. I usually get up here, but there's a couple of things I wanted to bring up. One of the things is I know the city discussed it, but they discussed the parking fees that the people around the high school have to pay. I know the city got the signs changed so that the property that the school has now has the arrow and the signs have been moved so that the students can park there. But the fees, I think the fees are just a little bit high. I'm not saying they're a bribe, but I provided all of you with some type of a little bribe on that. You can take it however you want to take it. And then the other thing is the tickets that the students got in that spot. Are we going to make that so that it's retroactive, so that the kids that were parked legally in that area will get their the tickets dismissed, or are they going to do anything about that? And the other thing is I appreciate the job you guys do. That's what the bribe was for us, because you guys do such a great job and we appreciate it. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Dean. Is this the bribe?
I guess.
Okay.
And this?
Good evening. I'm Darrell McKinnon. I just first want to say, Mayor and Council and our city employees, thanks for all you do for making Kaysville an awesome place to live and to raise our family. I just wanted to give a special thanks to Chief Larkin and thank him for his decades of service, for everything he's done for the city. his direction of helping to get our beautiful station, our top-of-the-notch equipment, great firefighters, everything. We have a lot to be thankful for because of him. When my son Cameron, who is a firefighter, when he was a senior in high school, he was offered an internship by Chief Larkin and Jim Dotson. And they weren't too excited about it at first, but it worked out, and my son has loved his experience over the last 7.5 years serving Kaysville here. And I just want to welcome Chief Erickson and his family. Got to meet him and wish him the very best. And again, thanks for everything that's done.
Thanks, Darrell. Any other items for call to the public? Seeing none, we'll close call to the public. I'd just like to really briefly address two quick items. Regarding the question that Mr. Wall asked for parking, I don't believe we have any plans to retroactively modify anything going back, but everything would start from this point going forward. But I'll have a discussion and make sure I understand what it is that you're asking, and review the policy that the council passed. The other question that was raised by Mr. Nelson, and I just would echo, I think one of the reply emails earlier is just thanks both for being here and for your service for 8 years as well on the council is very much appreciated. The option to, I had replied to an email, the option to reconsider a previous action by the council, as you indicated, would have to come by a motion from one of the majority, or those who voted the majority vote. Let me rephrase that. The action to reconsider would have to come from one of the individuals who were from the majority vote of how it ultimately ended up passing. The other issue that I saw as I read our rules of order and reviewed those is that in order for anyone to make a motion to revisit the issue, we would have to have it on the agenda to allow them to make that motion. So we're kind of in a little bit of a catch-22 timing-wise. If there even was interest from the council, we would have to have it listed on the agenda tonight in order to revisit it. That would have had to been amended or added to our agenda no later than 6:59 yesterday evening, and could have been requested, at least to put it on the, as I understand it, any two members of the council could request to have the item on the agenda. But even having it on the agenda doesn't mean we would necessarily discuss it at that point. Once on the agenda, then one of the original majority would have to make the motion to reconsider it at that point. In my response earlier was that my follow-up response was that I didn't think we had any option because we were beyond the ability to amend the agenda, even if we had two council members who were going to ask to have it put on, would have probably inhibited our ability to do it regardless. And then secondly, we couldn't take a motion in this meeting to revisit it. If we put it on our next agenda, whenever that ends up being, because we have a discussion on timing for our next meeting, then we would violate the rules because the rules say it has to be visited at the very next council meeting. So we kind of have a conflict all the way around. It would have to come back as a new item, a completely new request and discussion for the council. But at this point, I wouldn't even be able to ask the council to reconsider it this evening because it's not on the agenda and therefore would be out of order as our rules are concerned, fortunately. So.
What would the options be then? Don't they have 10 days to file an appeal? I think that appeal expiration 10-day window probably expires in the next 2 hours. So, I mean, granted, where maybe he didn't know that law, where he's here now, I would think there's going to be some way to, we could all attest that he did come to file an appeal, and if the state says, oh, you're on the 11th day because he does it tomorrow, we're all here as witnesses that he was here in that 10-day window.
Yeah, I can't, as I mentioned in my email, and don't believe any of the council members should probably give you advice on what the time frame. I don't know for a certainty if that's 10 calendar days or 10 business days. If it's 10
It's 10 business days.
10 business days. So it seems like we had a holiday in there somewhere too, so I'm not sure what that does to your numbers. But I know that no. That's why I said I don't know what that does to your numbers. If I was giving advice, I would say here's what it does to your numbers. So I don't know what that does for your numbers, for your timing for filing an appeal. I also don't know if we're talking business days. It seems like we've had some discussion by this business day mean it ends at 5 p.m. We're here. Does it just mean we've had some discussion of that on other issues in the past? What that means? Does that just mean by 11:59? Personally, if this would probably be your discussion for the city recorder, and I don't think I'm able to, since she's the one that would receive the appeal. But I would recommend maybe having a conversation with her at the end of this meeting to maybe it could be as simple as a written note, but I just don't know. And trying to give that advice on the fly in this meeting is probably not something I can do either.
So I understand. I'm not sure what you're telling me, Mayor. What you're telling me that after the meeting I can talk to the city recorder and maybe work something out then? Is that what you're suggesting? Or what I want is I want to know what we can do at this point. I know there's been a lot of water under the bridge and so forth, and I haven't been involved all the time either. It's only recently. And as far as your email that you sent out, Andy mentioned it to me, and he showed it on his computer. I didn't read it all, but I never received it, so I wasn't aware of that clarification that you sent out later. I had not seen that, so I just want to make sure we're doing it right.
I understand that, and I want to make sure that we're doing it right too, and I also want to make sure that the process that you have to contest or appeal is followed as well. I don't want to be overly optimistic, but I'm hopeful this meeting, with the amount of items we have on the agenda, is going to conclude in the next short period of time.
Well, if I pay off these people behind me then and they leave, then it will be short, won't it?
Well, thus far someone's been calling this Snickers a bribe, which may make it public property now, so I don't want to get into any more payoffs or bribes. But yeah, I think if you can stick around, then let's
okay.
have that conversation.
Okay, I'll be glad to do that then. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. The next item on our agenda is consent appointment of the new Kaysville City Fire Chief, Mr. Scott.
Mayor and City Council, we since the announcement of Chief Larkin's retirement, we initiated a process to pursue a new fire chief, and it was, in my opinion, a wonderful process. Mayor Hyatt participated in most of that process, and Councilmember Garn participated on as much as he could as well. We had two fire chiefs from other agencies participate on our interview committee, as well as Mayor Bob Carroll from Fruit Heights and Chief Oberg as well. Don Carroll, what did I say?
Bob.
Oh, Bob Carroll. Yeah, Don Carroll. Thank you. Yes. And I'm happy to present to you for your consideration tonight Paul Erickson. I think it would be appropriate, if Mayor, if that's okay, he could maybe introduce himself and his lovely wife and let you know a little bit about him.
Sure, you
bet. She's smart.
Very smart.
All right, I'm on my own here. Thank you very much, Mayor, council members. Paul Erickson, was born and raised in the Bay Area, joined the Air Force at a young age, traveled all over the world serving the Air Force in fire protection for the past 33 years. I'm currently the fire chief at Hill Air Force Base for the past 9 years. I will be retiring, and it's just an honor to be here. Two children, two lovely children, one in Boise with my son-in-law and two granddaughters, and then one here in Kaysville, just right down the street. She married a local kid, and so it looks like here is we're staying. It's things happen. But my lovely wife Karen,
who's been with me over 30 years. And again, thank you very much. It's an honor and a privilege.
Thank you, Chief. We'll call that our staff introduction. Would provide the opportunity for council to ask our rules of procedure. Say that at this point we'll provide clarifying questions, if any, from the council, and then we would ask for a motion. And after the motion and second, we provide an opportunity for additional discussion, since this is a regular agenda item. So, any clarifying questions from council?
Sure. What timing? Explain the timing.
October 15th, we hope to have him on board that day.
Okay. So Chief Larkin officially retires at the end of this month.
Correct. Right? So there'll be a couple of weeks. And we've met yesterday and talked about that, what we do in the interim, and I think we've got that worked out.
Okay.
Any other clarifying questions from the council? If not, I would welcome a motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept the appointment of the new Kaysville City Fire Chief, Paul Erickson.
I'll second that.
Thank you. A motion by Councilmember Lee and a second by Councilmember Garn, as outlined. At this point, just so used to my regular dialogue, at this point we'd provide the council any opportunity for follow-up questions or comments. We'll start with Councilmember Garn. You have 5 minutes.
Yeah, just a comment. Glad that Mr. McKinnon brought up the fine service of Chief Larkin in the past, but things change. None of us are permanent in anything we do, I guess, in life, but we're very grateful to have you, Chief Erickson, join Kaysville, and I'm sorry I wasn't able to meet you earlier in the interview process, but very grateful to have met you tonight and look forward to great things. You certainly have had a wealth of experience in fire protection and in the Air Force, and I think that will really serve us well here in Kaysville as well.
Thank you very much, sir.
Councilmember Adams.
I don't have much to say. Nice to meet you, Chief.
Thank you.
You have a good demeanor about yourself, and I appreciate that. You have a smart wife, too.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, that's probably all I've got to say to you, sir. I guess it was earlier on, or maybe mid to late summer, when we learned that there was going to be a shift in the fire department. I guess this is more clarification from the manager, or I guess I've been out of the loop. What has our current chief? He's a great guy. You know, he's a great personal man. I'm sure a lot are going to be missed. Mr. McKinnon had some very gracious words to say about him. And is he just moving on in a career path, or has it been a 2-3 year plan of his to retire, or can you help us understand that, Mr. Scott?
I don't really know what his immediate plans are, but I think he's excited about retirement, and I don't think he's just going to put his feet up and do nothing, though. I think he's going to try and stay actively engaged, at least in some regard, and especially probably so in the fire service.
So he's been working, he's had retirement plans for a long time now. That was a personal decision of his, or?
He's been in the fire service for 37 years, so I don't really know. He'd probably be better to speak about his personal plans than I would be.
I figured after being here a little over a year now, you might know him a little better. Forgive me for that. Perhaps you don't. It just seemed abrupt. I think people were a little shocked. Definitely grateful to have such a guy of such caliber and experience to be heading up that department for us. But sad to see Brett Larkin go. A very nice, personable man. And for me, I'll wrap up by saying a little more clarity on his standing would have been great. Perhaps maybe Councilwoman Lee or Councilmember Page would have some clarifying commentary there.
Thank you. Councilmember Lee.
I just want to thank you for taking the opportunity to come to Kaysville and to give us your great wealth of knowledge and help with the continuation of our fire department and keeping it to a standard that we all know has been kept and will continue to be kept. And so thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Councilmember. Actually, I'm going to take my time too.
You go.
Just working through this process, we had a lot of great and qualified individuals apply. I think there are a number of them who would have served Kaysville City in a very excellent way. Councilmember Adams made a comment about Chief Erickson's presence, and that was one of many things that really stood out to me, at least through that interview process. Your experience in traveling and your unique perspective on fire expertise, I think, will be very valuable for the city. The other thing that, as we had a follow-up meeting with Chief Erickson, that I also liked and appreciated, not only his structure and his leadership, and I think his clear ability for not only exceeding excellence but ensuring accountability. I also feel like he's a leader who recognizes that he may not have the skills set for every situation that we may need in the city. And I think he will be one to reach out and utilize those who work with him and utilize their expertise to ensure that we have the most smoothly operating department we can, which will undoubtedly have some challenges in the next couple of years, as we are one of the few remaining volunteer part-time fire departments in the state. And I think Chief Erickson is very well suited to help lead us through some of the growing pains that we will have and get to face. So thank you again for your participating and being willing to join the family. Glad to have you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. The mayor has said a few of the things that I wanted to say as well, and I think much has been spoken already tonight about Chief Larkin, our outgoing fire chief, and obviously we have a retirement outgoing party for him here, I think, later next week, and so that will be a good opportunity for us all to say the positive things to his face, which I think is important. But it's also important to say publicly here in a formal council meeting that he has been a tremendous asset for the city, as Mr. Scott said, 37 years, and that's a good long time to be giving support to our community, and we certainly appreciate Chief Larkin. I've known him for many years. And he's done some terrific things, not just the equipment and the fire station that we have there, but also the training, I think, of the men and women in the department. And I think it's uniquely, I'll say, almost miraculous, the degree to which that department has been able to run with the part-time status and volunteer status. So you do have a difficult challenge to step into in that regard, but I have no doubt, just having met you just tonight, that you'll step up to that challenge. You've had some interesting opportunities to serve in the Air Force and in other entities over the years. It is, and I look forward to you bringing your expertise and your experience, the structure that you've had to our fire department, because I think that's going to be helpful, very helpful going forward, and I look forward to that and the successes that you'll bring as well.
Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you. One of the disadvantages of being the last guy, everybody says what you want to say. One thing I'd like to say to Fire Chief Larkin, and I know he's not here tonight, but I know when we were going through the fire mitigation up on the east side of Kaysville and the wildfire situation, not only was he a support, but what a great wealth of information and supported the citizens up there as well. And it's been a wonderful thing to be able to have that in place and be able to have his support and the fire department's support. You know, with that being said, I think that you'll be a nice fit into Kaysville, you and your wife, and I appreciate you taking this job, and we're looking forward to a relationship with you and seeing some great things come out of our fire department as well. Right now, as you know, we're moving forward, and I think we're in a transition period to move our fire department eventually into a full-time fire department, and And I know that that's a great challenge for us, and we appreciate it. I think you'll be the man for the job. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Council, thank you very much for your comments. We've all had the opportunity to speak to the agenda item. At this time, I would call for a vote. Councilmember Garn?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Voting is unanimous. Welcome aboard, Chief. Glad to have you.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. As commented earlier, we have an open house scheduled for Chief Larkin on Thursday, September 28th. I believe it starts at 12:30 at the fire. 12:30 to 4 at the fire station. So we'd encourage you all to come and participate in that as well. Next on our agenda is preliminary plat approval for Hilton Homes subdivision located at 289 North, 700 East. Mr. Thompson.
Hilton family has owned property here on 700 East and about 300 North for some time. It's well over half an acre. There's been one home there. Property is currently zoned R18. They've decided it's now time to subdivide the property. The request is to split it into 3 lots. Existing home on the corner with a new lot to the west and one to the south. All the lots are right around 9,000 square feet, which are well over the 8,000 square feet required. They meet the frontage requirement. The existing home meets the setback requirements, and the improvements are already in place on the existing road, so it's pretty straightforward. Planning Commission reviewed this and recommended preliminary plat approval.
Excellent, thank you. Any clarifying questions from the council for staff? Seems pretty straightforward. If not, I'd welcome a motion.
You know, I'd like to make a motion, growing up in that area, very familiar with that lot, that we approve the preliminary plat for the Hilton Home subdivision.
I'll second that.
Thank you. A motion by Councilmember Lee and a second by Councilmember Page as outlined for approval of the preliminary plat. Council, this will be an opportunity to have follow-up discussion. You each have 5 minutes. Let's start with Councilmember Adams.
Did the notification process go out, 500-foot radius? Do we have receipt of all the recipients?
Notification process, as outlined, was followed, yes.
Oh, okay. That was a little spin on my question, though. As outlined. So what is defined as outlined, please? I'm
going to be honest with you off the top of my head. I believe we did notify, but I'm not 100% positive because this is a plat approval, not a rezone. The direction was given to us for rezones to send out 500 feet. So I don't think this one had 500, but I honestly couldn't tell you. I can check and see. But it was noticed as per the requirement.
What is the requirement then? Maybe help to have a quick refresher on that.
Yes. I don't see the list in the file. Again, I don't think we've been given the direction on preliminary plats that the 500-foot notification was required. That hasn't been discussed on plats, just on rezones.
What's the notification process then that you speak of? Is it surrounding properties, adjacent properties?
I believe it's the adjacent properties, and the property is noticed with a sign.
So the yellow sign went out?
Yes.
And letters were sent out?
I believe so, yes. I can't verify that. Like I said, that's not a requirement on preliminary plats.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe that's something we could talk about on a different agenda, perhaps. So we don't have any, Mr. Manager, do we have any requirements on that you're aware of, or Mr. Mayor?
I believe that the requirement for notification on a rezone, as Mr. Thompson indicated, and I think that's a pretty loose term because requirement, I don't believe we've adopted anything formally. We have given direction in this meeting that we should notify people. I've stated once before that I think that's a little bit soft because it leaves us open to confusion as to what we should or should not notify. But the previous direction, as I also recall it, is to that extended notification, if you will, still has not been adopted by the council, but the council recommendation was 500 feet on rezones. And I also thought it was conditional use permits as well, but maybe it was just rezones. Just a typical regular preliminary and final plat, the yellow sign goes up and the notice goes on the website, and I don't know about adjacent property owners.
As we mentioned last week, Councilman Page in her council reports did mention that the Planning Commission is working on that notification amendment to the ordinance, and you should be seeing that sometime in the next couple meetings.
Excellent. Anything else, Councilmember Adams?
No.
Councilmember Lee?
I have no questions.
Councilmember Snell?
I don't believe I have any additional discussion items.
Councilmember Page?
Yeah, no questions. Looks good.
Councilmember Garn?
No comment or questions.
Thank you. I'll have the opportunity to ask your follow-up questions. At this point, I would welcome a vote. Actually, at this point, I'll start a vote. Councilmember Adams?
Simply without receipt of who was notified, I'd like to have at least receipt of direct adjacent property owners. It's a nay.
Yeah.
Aye.
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 Thank you. Motion carries 4-1. Next item on our agenda is consideration to cancel or reschedule the October 19, 2017 City Council meeting. Council, in our last, one of our previous meetings, we pointed out that occasionally when we know that we anticipate direct conflicts with the potential for people to be out of town, our second meeting in October is on October 19th, which is UEA weekend. There are some of us who have kids in school or not in school, as it would be on this evening. And times in the past, we have considered canceling or rescheduling the meeting. So you have one of three options that the council can consider. First would be leave it, second would be reschedule it, and third would be cancel it. Does staff have a recommendation based on what you see coming down the pipe?
I would say that what I've looked at is the ability, are things coming up? Do we have a lot of agenda items that need to be seen at this time? It would be and this is just me, my preference to cancel the meeting, but to reserve the right to call a meeting if we need to, not on this date, but to change one if we need to. But I don't see any timely items that couldn't wait till November 5th. Second.
Thank you.
Correct.
Any clarifying questions from the council on this recommendation?
Mayor, can I make one other clarifying statement? I think you mentioned that the next meeting is October 5th, right? So we're talking about the 19th, so that we have one more meeting before this meeting, just to make sure that everybody understood that.
Right. So we are still meeting on October 5th. We're discussing staff recommendation of canceling the City Council meeting on October 19th. As I understand it, per the state code, we're required to at least meet once a month, so canceling the meeting would not put us in any predicament in that regard. So any clarifying questions from the council? If not, I would welcome a motion for one of the three options recommended.
I'll be happy to make the motion that we cancel the meeting on October 19th.
I'll second that.
Thank you. A motion by Councilmember Snell, a second by Councilmember Garn to cancel the meeting, the regularly scheduled City Council meeting on October 19th. Council, is your opportunity to discuss this further. You each have 5 minutes. Councilmember Lee.
I just know that if something were to come up, we could hold a special meeting. Is that correct?
Correct.
So that will cover if anything
Yes.
does happen. So it sounds good.
Councilmember Snell.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like there's anything coming down the pipeline. You already answered that question as far as agenda items or potential agenda items that would put us in some kind of duress between October 5th and November 2nd. So I don't think there's any reason that we should reschedule or anything, try to fit another meeting in.
Councilmember Page.
Yeah, no comment. I'm fine.
Councilmember Garn.
Nothing else to add.
Councilmember Adams.
I'm just heartbroken to have one less meeting with my good buddies. You know, be saying goodbye to a few of them in January, and it just breaks my heart to have one less on the spin. So, no, other than that, I'm good.
Councilmember, great.
You have any comment on that?
None that would be valuable or constructive. Next, so we have a motion and a second. We'll start a vote. Councilmember Lee, or Snell. Okay, Councilmember Lee.
Yeah, Lee.
Aye.
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 I guess.
Thank you. Voting is unanimous. Next on our agenda is review of minutes. Council, you have before you a set of minutes dated September 7, 2017. If you've had a chance to review, to welcome a motion for their approval.
I did review the...
So moved.
I'll second that.
Thank you. A motion by Councilmember Garn, a second by Councilmember Snell for approval of the minutes as provided. Any further discussion? No roll call vote is necessary on approval of minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Council, you also have before you a 3-month calendar for 2017. Have a chance, an opportunity to review the next 3 months. Would just make a note. We've already talked of Chief Larkin's open house. Public is invited and encouraged to come. We would love to have you join us in expressing our appreciation for Chief Larkin and for his service. We also have our fire prevention open house, or our fire open house, that is going to be held on Wednesday, October 11th at 6 p.m. at the fire station. We typically will have a Life Flight helicopter or AirMed helicopter come and land at the fire station. And it's amazing how many people actually come out from the community to understand fire prevention, fire safety. I get to know our firefighters a little better, so we'd also extend an invitation to all of you to join us for that as well.
What day was that again?
That was Wednesday, October 11th.
6 p.m.
6 p.m. All right. Next item we have on our agenda is council member reports. If you have a report that you'd like to provide at this time?
I got one. So a couple weeks ago, I was actually out just having lunch with a friend, and I was traveling northbound, actually, on Main, and past the Tasty Donuts establishment. Happened to, see that there was a construction project going on, and that's my background, as many as you know. So I thought, and my buddy, he was in construction. He's like, let's see what's going on. And simply took a right-hand turn on Main, went up Mutton Hollow, quarter of a block, turned around and left and went north again, went to our destination, and then came back through town and took, never put the truck in park or anything of that nature. Came back through town and just looked at, up. This is the women's shelter is right there, and I just looked up that road. We looked up to see what was going on. There was an open trench. There was a water line going in. We're like, oh, great, awesome. Looks like things are going good. Guys are working really hard up there, and the comments were even made like, man, that's awesome that we're doing some sweat equity with our own crews. And so that was the commentary in the cab of my pickup truck. I came to City Council that night. And then the next day I received a very accosting email from the management of the city, threatening me with legal recourse, stating that I had accosted the crew and threatened the crew. And quite frankly, these unfounded attacks and perpetuations of the rumor mill in town are quite frankly getting old. I don't understand it. There's a witness in the truck. He'd be glad to come. He actually has requested to come and meet with you, Mr. Scott. But I'd like to speak about that project. It has, due to that email, it did draw me in a little bit to go, okay, why would I be accosted so greatly over just simply driving by a project, which was very happenstance, and there was no objective on my part. We had no idea, stumbled across it, if you will. But it's a water line that's going on that probably has a value of $50,000 or so, and it's being performed on private property. So in my background, I've repaired and replaced numerous water mains on private property, and every time I did, the invoice was sent to the property owner, not the city. Okay, so here I've tried to seek some clarifying questions. I've been to the county. We don't have an easement. The city does not hold an easement there, according to county record. So I'm a little bit confused, and I would like to have some clarification as to, is this the standard practice in the city? Are we taking care of utilities on private properties? I know we have some very, we have some people underneath a lot of duress right now who are in some serious flooding problems. And why aren't we just freely taking storm drain money and solving their problems when we're freely taking culinary water funds and we're not just repairing? I've been told it had just a couple leaks in it, but we're replacing the entire main line. So for anybody who may be going, what are you talking about, Councilmember Adams? This main line, we as taxpayers are not dependent upon the main line that goes through
your time
the
is up,
shelter.
Councilmember.
Well, let me at least close. I didn't know we had time on Councilmember reports.
We do. It's in the rules of procedure that
Okay.
the council passed.
Well, we're not dependent on that water line. The owners of that property and the owners of those buildings are dependent on that water line, and it's a fire line that they installed to have their buildings there to meet code. We are paying for that. I want the taxpayers to know that. You know, in my opinion, my professional opinion, I've never seen another city pay for that, and in my opinion, we should not be. We have homeowners that are suffering from flooding, and we're not helping them, and we're over here replacing a water main that never came before this body to get direction if we should even do it, if it is a charitable kind of thing. So,
Thank you. Councilmember Lee?
No, I have no report.
Councilmember Snell?
Just from Mr. Scott's weekly email report yesterday, the bids are out officially now. The bidding is open for Pioneer Park. I think they close on, you said, the 24th
Correct.
of October. So for those out there who are waiting on Pioneer Park and excited for that addition to the park system in Kaysville, the bids will be open. We're hoping for some sharp pencils and low prices for next year's construction season. So that'll be exciting. That's it.
Thank you, Councilmember.
All right, thank you. That's like a hope and a wish, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Hey, just one thing. This past week, we one of the blessings of being in the city council is to attend the Utah League of City and Town and have training for several days. This is probably the best convention I think that I've been to personally, and I think that it was the workshops and the way it was run was just excellent. I think most of the people here understand that our mayor was actually the president of the Utah League, and I'm going to personally miss his influence there, and he did a great job. In fact, they said that the turnout we had was the best we had in many years. So, and it was run perfectly. He even controlled the weather. It was great. It worked out just great. I don't think he'll take credit for that, but I just want him to know personally that I know of the many, literally hundreds of hours that go into these projects to put something over like this, and it was a great thing for our city and as well as all the cities in Utah. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Garn.
Yeah, I'd just like to again express how proud I am, appreciative of the Youth City Council and all the service projects. And as Councilmember Snell knows, we have a mayor now and a council, and I believe Mayor Hyatt will have the privilege of swearing in the new Youth City Council members, and they're really doing great things now, so I'm very proud of them.
Thank you. Next item we have on our agenda is adjournment.
Move to adjourn, Mayor.
Second.
Thank you. A motion by Councilmember Snell and a second by Councilmember Ling to adjourn the city council meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Feel bad for the scouts that didn't come. They could have done a short one in there, darn it.
Are we not going to address the lead on record live?